Have you ever wondered who will be the next pope? Imagine a conclave in the Vatican, the cardinals behind the closed doors of the Sistine Chapel, and the whole world holding its breath, waiting for the white smoke. But what if this time the choice of cardinals surprises everyone? Not another Italian or Latin American, but someone from an unexpected corner of the world, say a charismatic bishop from the Philippines or a theologian from Africa. Or even more radical, what if the institution of the papacy itself suddenly ceased to exist? Paradoxically, these very questions, who would lead the church and what would happen without it, make us think about the future not only of Catholicism, but of the entire world. So pour yourself a cup of coffee, make yourself comfortable, and let's go to an alternative history where the election of the Pope went off script, and then imagine what would have happened without the papacy at all. This story will grab you from the first lines and leave you thinking for a long time. Why is this topic so touching? The papacy is not only a religious institution, but also a global player that has influenced politics, culture, and even our daily lives for centuries. From the Pope who blessed the Crusades to Francis who calls for fighting the climate crisis, every pontiff has left his mark. But who will be next? And what if history had turned out differently? We'll add a touch of irony by recalling how popes have sometimes surprised the world. For example, when John Paul II joked about Polish cuisine, or when Benedict XVI caused a stir with his red shoes. Ahead is a dynamic story with unexpected twists and turns that will make you wonder, what if things had gone differently? Pope Francis, a favorite of millions for his simplicity and calls for mercy, is ending his ministry. The Vatican is preparing for a conclave, but the world has changed. Artificial intelligence writes sermons, climate crises force countries to rewrite laws, and young people demand answers from the church to questions that were previously considered taboo. Cardinals gather in the Sistine Chapel, but the tension is palpable. The church is at a crossroads. Traditionalists want a pope who will bring back the good old days, while reformers dream of a leader who will open the church to modernity. And here's the first twist. After several black smoke votes, the cardinals elect Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle of the Philippines, known for his charisma and closeness to ordinary people. He chooses the name Pope Gregory XVIII. Tagle, nicknamed the Asian Francis in Manila, is not a typical candidate. He is 73, but his energy makes younger cardinals feel older. He grew up in a poor family, preached in a slum, and has a YouTube channel where he explains the gospel with a smile. His election is a signal that the church is turning its face toward Asia, where Catholicism is growing faster than anywhere else. But this is only the beginning. Gregory XVIII announces his plan to make the church the voice of the poor and a platform for dialogue on technology, ecology, and human rights. He jokes at the first press conference, "If Jesus preached from a boat, I can try it with Zoom." The first step of Gregory XVIII is the encyclical Light of Hope, where he calls for global solidarity with the poor. The Vatican finances clean energy projects in Asia and Africa, and the Pope himself visits refugee camps, which becomes a media sensation. But the reforms are not limited to charity. Gregory XVIII creates the Digital Synod, an online platform where lay people can express their opinions on the future of the church. Conservative cardinals are outraged. Is the church now like a social network? But young people are excited, and Catholic parishes in Asia and Latin America are coming to life. But not everyone is happy. European traditionalists accuse the Pope of excessive modernization. In the United States, conservative Catholics are writing petitions and memes are appearing on social media. Gregory XVIII is the first pope to know what Wi-Fi is. The Pope responds with humor, "If the Apostle Paul wrote letters, then I can write tweets." But tensions rise when he appoints women to advisory positions in the Vatican. These are not cardinal titles, but a move that sparks a storm of debate. "The church is not only about beards and cassocks," he says, and the phrase goes viral. Now let's imagine a radical scenario. What if the institution of the papacy had disappeared altogether? Say after the Great Schism of 1054, when the Western and Eastern churches finally separated, or after the Reformation, when Catholicism lost its centralized leadership. Without a pope to unite Catholics, Christianity could have disintegrated into many autonomous churches, as in Orthodoxy or Protestantism. In the Middle Ages, this would have meant a weaker Europe. Without papal support, the Crusades might not have taken place, and Catholic monarchs would have lost their spiritual legitimacy. The irony is that without the Vatican, there might not have been a Renaissance as we know it, as the popes financed Michelangelo and Raphael. In modern times, the absence of the papacy could have accelerated secularization. Without a central figure to oppose the Reformation, Catholicism could have dissolved into Protestant movements or local cults. Imagine France or Spain without a Catholic identity, they might have become more Protestant, like England or the Netherlands. But there is another side to this. Without papal indulgences and corruption scandals, the Reformation might have been less radical and religious wars less bloody. In today's world, the absence of the papacy would mean a vacuum of spiritual leadership. Who would call for peace during the Cold War, as John Paul II did? Who would fight for the environment, as Francis did? Perhaps the UN or secular leaders would have taken on these functions, but without religious authority, their voice would have been weaker. It is interesting that Catholic countries like Italy or Mexico could develop their own local papacies, something like patriarchs who would compete with each other. And the Vatican? Without the papacy, it could become just a museum where tourists go to see Michelangelo's frescoes, not the Pope. Let's go back to our own Gregory XVIII. His reforms make the church more open, but at the same time split it. In 2035, conservative cardinals organized a parallel synod in Poland, demanding a return to tradition. Gregory responds in an unexpected way. He announces the Second Vatican Council 2.0, where the laity, not just bishops, will have a voice. This becomes a turning point. The church either adapts to the new world or risks losing influence. In Asia and Africa, the Pope becomes a symbol of hope, but in Europe he is accused of populism. The world media jokes, the Vatican now looks like the United Nations, but with better frescoes. By 2040, the church under the leadership of Gregory XVIII achieves a new balance. It remains a spiritual center, but becomes more decentralized. Local bishops gain more autonomy, and the Vatican becomes a moral compass for global crises. The culture is changing. Catholic schools are becoming centers of environmental education, and technologies such as artificial intelligence are being used to translate the Bible into rare languages. But most importantly, the church is regaining young people who see it not as an outdated institution, but as a force that responds to the challenges of the times. So, where did this alternative history lead? Pope Gregory XVIII, a native of the Philippines, brought the church closer to the people, but at the same time forced it to teeter on the brink of schism. His reforms from digital synods to poverty alleviation have shown that even the oldest institution can adapt to a world where technology and climate crises dictate the rules. And the thought of a world without the papacy reminded us how much one person or institution can influence the course of history. Without the Pope, we might live in a more secular, but perhaps less cohesive world. The irony is that when we criticize the Vatican, we often forget how it has shaped our art, politics, and even our way of thinking. This trip makes us wonder, how fragile is our world? One choice in the Sistine Chapel can change the fate of billions. And what if the next pope went even further, for example, by supporting artificial intelligence in theology or advocating radical social change? The future is open, and you and I are its witnesses. If you enjoyed reflecting on these what-ifs, please like this post. It's a signal that we're on the right track. Subscribe so you don't miss new stories, and let's figure out together how history could turn. See you on our next journey.